Here we go. So we are now broadcasting. So, and yeah, and I can see that people are now starting to join as well, which is really, really good. So good morning. If you've joined us, we're ready to start at 12 o'clock. So we'll just give people a few minutes just to join the feed. And if you've joined using your computer, can you just put something into the chat box just to confirm you can see both of us and that you can hear us? So Mike, can you test your microphone as well, please? Just speak.
Morning, everyone.
So yeah. Oh, and just to make everybody aware, the way the webinar's set up, you join and your microphone is automatically muted, and likewise, your camera should automatically be off, so you don't need to worry about switching things off, or if you've got some background noise where you are, we won't be able to hear it at our end because it should already be automatically muted for you. That's pretty cool. Okay.
Just trying to manage all my screens. It's like the Matrix, getting all the participant windows up in the chat window.
Yeah, so I think my bar's at the top of my screen. I'm not sure if yours is at the top of your screen or if it's come up near the bottom, but yeah. So coming up to 12, but we'll give it to 12:01 and then we'll crack on. Yeah, a few more people have joined, so good morning if you've just joined. We're just going to give it another minute and then we're going to crack on because it's just gone 12 and we'll start when the clock hits 12:01.
I was gonna say at least the sun's out, but bit glum in Warrington.
It's a little bit grey where I am as well this morning. It might brighten up later.
Hopefully. Get the little one in the garden.
Ah, you're lucky you have a garden. I don't have a garden here. Yeah. I should have put some hold music or something on.
Yeah, definitely.
More interesting for everybody. Right, okay, so it is 12:01, so we will commence the webinar. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Monica, I'm hosting today's webinar, and I'm joined by Mike Douglas, and we're going to be discussing IT and technology for effective and secure remote working. So just for today's agenda, I've done a little welcome already. We'll go through some housekeeping. I'll then ask Mike to introduce himself so you know a little bit more about him and why I've invited him to come and share his expertise today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then we're really going to get into a discussion. And we want this to be a little bit more of a conversation. So Mike's happy to take questions as we go along as well. So if there is something that you want to say or input, then that's fine. You can make that point during the discussion. And we'll also have some time for Q&A as well after he's been through some of the content he's going to share. So opportunity to ask questions and share some tips as well around IT. So you'll see, depending on how your screen's set up, you should see that there's a Q&A function that you can access. So you can put your questions into there. There's also a raise hand feature. So if you raise your hand and you're happy to speak, then I can unmute you and you can then either add your point, add a tip, or have some discussion and basically input into the conversation. And I'm quickly going to run a little poll just so we know who we've got joining us here today. So please, if you feel comfortable, please could you answer these questions?
do I get sound to these, Monica?
I'm not sure. I don't think.
They've actually come up.
Have they come up for you? Can you? So just give it a few more seconds for people to respond. Right, okay, so I'm going to end the poll. So that's good. First answer is really, really good around the cybersecurity, that 100% people do feel as secure working from home as they do from their offices. And then there's an interesting split in terms of the applications people are currently using. There's one person who's not using any of the ones we listed. So that's Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Hangouts, Office 365, WebEx or Trello. And then there's mostly a mix between people using the Microsoft products really or Zoom. So that's great. And there you go. So I think you can see that as well. Let's just scroll that down so everyone can see that. Wonderful. So I'm just going to close off the poll and we'll get into the introductions. So Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. I'm Mike Douglas, the Commercial Director at Yellowbus Solutions. I've been involved with sort of setting up and running Yellowbus for, well, 20 years this year. We're just about to kick off our marketing around 20 years in business. You know, we had a huge campaign set up, and then obviously with what's going on in the world right now, that's sort of gone under the carpet, so we'll have to pick that back up. But so my day-to-day is working with businesses all around technology. So can we help businesses grow, be more productive? Big piece around security. We worked with Monica for many years. We do a lot of IT and technology within the nuclear sector. I'm personally based Warrington, so across the road from Birchwood Park, where our head office is. And I apologise in advance if you hear a little noise and my 3-year-old Harrison runs in. I think everyone's got a similar challenge at the minute, but on average he only does it once a day at the minute, and he's done it this morning already. So I've warned Monica, I think we're good. But yeah, so in a nutshell, yeah, technology, IT is sort of been all my life really, and the focus now is Monica's just put, yeah, go that slide, Monica. That'd be useful right now. The other one, I'm about to do that.
I actually pressed the wrong button, but yeah.
I'll touch that and we'll do your intro if that's easier. So yeah, I'm Commercial Director at Yellowbus. And as mentioned before, we've been doing that for nearly 20 years. And our offerings, you know, all around managed IT, cloud, security, and obviously at the minute, hot topic being remote working and technology around that. Based on Birchwood Park, we've also got an office in West Lakes. So with that footprint, we do a lot within nuclear engineering science. And we have a specialist team, if you like, and service offering around nuclear. You know, we've got a big portion of our engineers are SC cleared, so we have offerings around that. And obviously today, you know, we're talking with Monica around the changes that's happened in the world. You know, I'm sure everyone's, you know, in a different scenario right now. Obviously, I'm working from home, you know, running a webinar with Monica around remote working. So hopefully, yeah, happy to have an open conversation, any challenges people are having. And we are looking at putting out some guides with remote working, security, we're at home, so we can follow this up.
Brilliant, thanks Mike. So just a quick introduction. So I'm Monica Mwanje, I'm MD of Creative Solutions, which is my consultancy that I've been running since 2015. And via that I work remotely, primarily almost all of the time with different clients in the UK and across the globe who want to win more business and grow their businesses in the nuclear sector. So as Mike said, he's provided some really good and crucial IT support for me over the years that's enabled me to do that and to feel safe and secure when doing that and to meet all the different requirements that some of my clients have had. So hence why I asked him to come along today and share some of his expertise, particularly as maybe it's been a little bit rushed for some people in terms of having to set up a new working from home situation. So yeah, let's start the conversation. Let's have that discussion today. And yeah, it is really an opportunity to also ask questions and hear some top tips as well. So over to you, Mike.
Do you want to jump to the next slide? Cool. So yeah, we're all obviously dialed in, probably remote. You know, imagine 100% of people are probably working remotely right now. You know, there's a lot of changes going in the world. There's, you know, we're all being impacted with, you know, COVID-19. You know, what Mike Tyson said about having a plan. You know, everyone, you know, thinks they've got a plan until they get punched in the face. You know, every business has been punched in the face right now. No one was prepared for it. No one, you know, no one was ready. And there's not a lot people could have done about it. Remote working, it's been here a long time. Monica, no, you've worked remotely for a long time, you know, as sort of management team at Yellow Bus. We have flexible, you know, remote working, but as a company, as 100% staff, you know, remote working at scale was sort of new to us, and that's having a huge impact across the world. In terms of, we're seeing small businesses up to, you know, huge organizations, thousands of staff. Some of these organizations, especially sort of nuclear engineering, weren't yet leveraging cloud. You know, they, for whatever reason, whether it's security or because they, you know, they had the investments on-premise stuff, you know, they weren't quite ready for that move to the cloud. Then obviously COVID-19's happened, and we're seeing companies scrambling. They're trying to work out how we can get, you know, small organizations, big organizations, 500 users, thousands of users, literally what feels like overnight, to work remotely. And that comes with a lot of challenges. So in terms of what you need to be doing as an organization, you know, there's the first part really, before you even start looking at technology, is the mindset. You know, at this moment in time with what's going on, the panic, there's the survive mentality, and there's the thrive mentality. Unfortunately, there are some businesses, some industries that are obviously going to be hit harder than others. And some organizations will have to go into sort of a survive mentality to, you know, ride out this next 1 to 3 months. And it will get better. You know, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and the government's helping, and that's, you know, that's great. But a big portion of us, you know, a big portion of businesses can thrive through this. You know, there's opportunities. There's you know, if you look at it the right way and look at the benefits that, you know, can come out of this, you know, businesses can progress. You know, this has forced digital transformation. But you know, at scale, you know, it would have taken years for many companies to get to this level, and what people are about to adopt right now. So once you've got that thrive mentality, it's then, you know, how do you get to the next level? And it's really looking at technology. You know, how can you leverage technology to ensure you're maintaining productivity, maintaining security, managing your workforces? Because without that, you know, remote working, it just wouldn't work. You know, you need to sort of focus on what technology can help you. And in terms of the future, what does the future look like? It's different. It's, you know, the world as we know it has changed. There's a new norm, and the new norm is remote working. Yes, in a few months, hopefully things will settle down. You know, business will pick back up. People, you know, people will get back on track with sort of a new normality, if you like. However, there will be a new norm. You know, a lot of people will stay working remotely. Companies will question, you know, can we keep offices dispersed? Can we have more flexible working? We're going to have a challenge ourselves. You know, we've got all these guys that probably wanted to work from home a long time, now working from home. The challenge is probably then getting back into an office when it all settles down. And, you know, everyone's going to have that challenge, but this is now proven that, you know, the technology's there to do that, and to do it properly. But there just needs to be some careful consideration. So as we spoke before, you know, it comes with its challenges. So security becomes a bigger issue. Maintaining productivity, you know, we've all got jobs to do. We all need to ensure the output is the same. And again, you know, you need to be looking at your technology, of, you know, making sure you've got that roadmap to help that sort of seamless transition, if you like, to sort of remote working. Do you want to shoot to the next slide, Monica? So in terms of what you need to be looking at, 4 key areas really. I'm going to stay really high overview. If anyone's got any questions that wants to dive into any of these, and I've got some technology examples for these categories in the next couple of slides. But I think we'll keep this overview, and then I mentioned to Monica before that if anyone wants to deep dive any of these, we're quite happy to put another webinar on, or do one-to-ones, or if anyone needs any help, you know, just raise your hand. So first one being productivity. as I mentioned before, we've all got jobs to do. We've all got clients to look after. We need to maintain that standard. What we don't want with people working from home, we don't want standards to drop. We don't want clients to not get the service they've been getting. So top of the pile needs to be, can you maintain productivity, results, outcomes, and how can you manage that, if you like. Communication, as the saying goes, and we've got it on our office wall, communication is key. Not just any communication, so human communication. If anyone's obviously been, forced working remotely overnight, which a lot of people have, it's quite easy to fall into the trait of email. Everyone is probably sick of their email anyway, and everyone's probably tried to master inbox zero and probably failed. And it's, with email's very reactive. You can find yourself working all day on email and realize you've not actually done the job you were supposed to do that day. An email basically is someone else's to-do list. It's people, 24/7 asking you to do stuff that they want to do. And you really need to try and limit that email intake. And that is, giving them the technology to use voice, use video. Obviously we're on video now, and there's going to be a huge boom with video conferencing. Collaboration comes hand in hand with communication. And that is making sure that the members of staff can do the job to the full ability of what they would normally do in the office. So everyone needs access to files, applications, sharing stuff. There's obviously a worry that with everyone working remotely, people are taking shortcuts. Instead of going to a file share and sharing it using the proper methods, are people now going to attach a sensitive document to an email? So this needs all consideration, and it needs the correct tools for your staff to be able to do that. And then one of the most important ones, security. And with security comes remote management. So we've got how do we protect our users' data systems. Overnight we've got thousands of users, all dispersed, all probably picked up laptops that they weren't using, all provisioned, years ago and been using a home PC. But people are ordering kit left, right, and centre to just try and mobilise those users. Security is normally the second thought. And we've got a slide a bit later on with security where we can deep dive that subject, and that's probably one that most people need to spend a bit of attention. Do I jump on to the next one, Monica? So in terms of productivity, as I mentioned before, this is people doing the day-to-day jobs and managing those day-to-day jobs. So no matter what the industry, no matter what the business, most people have tasks to manage, have projects to manage, and the big one being manage projects and tasks between users. So how can you give your members of staff a specific task, monitor the progress of that task? Has it got phases? A lot of people are probably used to, especially the nuclear sector, Microsoft Project, Primavera, those applications. These now need careful consideration to open up to the whole business. Once you've got remote workers, you need to be able to manage their workloads, see visibility, and you need to give these tools to your managers. Managers need to be able to keep a close eye on, everyone's productivity and making sure that, they're doing the job they need to be doing. Line of business applications. So this is any specific application for your business or industry. So for example, at Yellow Bus, we're obviously managed IT provider. We act as like an IT department for other companies. With that, we've got our own special tools. So we use a piece of software called ConnectWise, and that is our business. So that's our help desk, our ticketing, our invoicing. That is our line of business application. Without that, we would really struggle. So we've converted that application into a cloud-based application, so our users can access that everywhere. So every business and user needs to be assessing what applications are critical to their business, to their users, and can it be moved to the cloud. Obviously, nuclear, AutoCAD is quite key to a lot of industries. That comes with its own challenges of people working from home with that. There's special software for calculations, and it's all very unique to specific jobs or industries. These need to be analysed, broken down. Can this infrastructure, can these tools be moved to the cloud? And 9 times out of 10, they can. If it's running on a server in your office, it can be virtualized, it can be put in the cloud, it can be put into Microsoft. And you just need to ensure that the users are getting the tools they need and they're running as if they're in the office, if you like seamless transition. bit of a segue a little bit on the productivity side in terms of hardware. So what we're seeing is a lot of companies, are looking at task management, project management. They are looking at line of business applications. They're doing a really good job at that. They're sending staff home. Staff have the tools. They're ready to do the job. But in their office, they're used to working on a big desk, 2 big monitors, wireless headset, wireless keyboard and mouse. Really nice setup, for efficient working. And what we're seeing is a lot of users being sent home, given the tools, but then they're sat on a kitchen table with a really small laptop, no monitors, no headset, and they're expected to have the same output and productivity. So remote working is not going to be a temporary fix. You need to be looking at this as your users are going to be working remotely probably for the next 3 months, if not longer. So you need to start thinking, am I getting the most out of the staff? Can we help them? Do we need to be sending out kit to the houses? Do we need to be sending out monitors, keyboard, mice, headsets if they're spending a lot of time on calls or video conferencing? And the only note on that one is if you do start looking at that, look at it now, because as you can imagine, the supply chain is getting hammered. There's the shortages of laptops, monitors, headsets. So if you're forward thinking, if you want to start thinking in a month's time, I want to start kitting all my users out with these tools, start planning that now. Start speaking to your IT department and work out how you can make that happen. Some examples to touch on. I think, Monica, we're going to put this in a follow-up pack out. We're sort of listing some of the tools to use and links to them. But if you've not got anything that manages tasks nicely across remote users, Basecamp, Asana, Monday, and Zoho, all great products for sharing, managing tasks, projects, and a lot of them have got either a free trial or a free plan. ActiveTrack is quite a nice piece of productivity software. So depending on the industry, that can actually monitor staff productivity, what applications are they using, where are they spending the time. Element a little bit of Big Brother, but for some industries and some work types, it is needed, especially when you've got a large workforce that is not used to being remotely managed. And Office 365, I think a lot of users said they're using the Office 365 suite. Again, great for managing projects, all your Office applications in one place. We'll touch on obviously Microsoft Teams later on, but a great place to bring all your applications together. And this is something that a lot of people might have Office 365, but a lot of people don't know the full power of it. So it's definitely worth going into your sort of settings to see what plan you're on and what applications have you got, because most people are tickling the surface of what they're actually paying for. Next slide, please, Monica. Communication, collaboration. So these come hand in hand, as I mentioned before. And as I touched on before, communication is key. Making sure people are moving out of that inbox, opening that conversation. Again, some people are better than others at this. Some staff will need constant reminding, education that communication is key. Rather than send that email, pick up the phone. Use instant messaging, use video conferencing. Hosted telecoms now, a lot of organisations have been able to pick up their phone system. It's in the cloud. A lot of them now can transition to using a soft phone, so it gives them the full functionality of what they had in the office. The DDI follows them, the voicemail follows them. Anyone that had that hosted platform before everything happened, it's seamless transition for them right now. They're operating with their phone system in the cloud, and that's fine. If you had an on-premise phone system, you need to start looking at how can we move to that cloud platform. You've then got instant messaging. So people probably associate instant messaging with the old MSN Messenger from many years ago. Now I'm feeling a little bit old, but that's coming back. That's coming to its own. So obviously you've got the likes of Slack, instant messaging in Microsoft Teams, and that just gives that collaboration to the teams that if people got an instant question, you can go back and do that. Again, a little warning on that. It can end up being a little bit like email, where sometimes you've got to set your own routine. Dip in when you want to work on that. But if you've got to focus and get some deep work done, come out of that live chat for a little bit and get your job done, and then get back in there. Video conferencing, everyone's probably using it right now. It's having a huge boom. I know most of the vendors have been stretched recently. Microsoft had a few issues, WebEx, Zoom, within the first few days of everyone going home. everyone felt the pain there, but obviously everyone's scaled up the infrastructure and have now sort of found the feet with the activity there. File sharing, screen sharing, data access, all really useful to try and make your workforce as efficient as possible. If people are talking to each other, video conference with each other, if that tool can then allow sharing screens, allow sharing files, it brings them closer. You basically need to bring the boundaries down and make it as if you're sat next to that person in the office. We need to get that collaboration back, if you like. Some examples around this, and again, we'll share these links. Microsoft Teams is probably one of the big ones at the minute. We do a lot with that, and Teams brings everything together. So it has the voice, it has the instant messaging, it has the video, file sharing. But if you're a Microsoft user, if you're already in 365, it's got great integration with Word, Outlook, SharePoint Online. So again, central intranet for sharing calendars, message boards, and really, the keyword is collaboration. Keeping that team together, as if you sat in the office. You've not got the whiteboards now, you've not got the message boards on the wall. This is the closest thing you're going to get. And if anything, you're probably going to end up talking to people more than you did originally. I've mentioned to Monica before that I've never had so many conference calls and Teams video chats in my life. And I think over the last 2 weeks, I've seen my engineers more than I did when we were in the office. Some other good examples, we've got Cisco WebEx, we've got Zoom. Obviously Monica's using Zoom now for this webinar. So if it's video conferencing, these are all great tools. And then I put Loom there as well. Loom's a nice little free application. It's a browser add-on that would sit on top of your Google Chrome. So if you want to do any screen capture, so it's great if you want to explain to an employee or a team member how to do something, you can record your screen, do little snippets, and then it'll wrap it up in an email, send them the link, and it's great for explaining things. Do you want to jump on to the next one, Michael? Security, so as I mentioned before, probably one of the biggest ones at the minute, and one of the areas that a lot of people are probably not thinking about. People are starting to think about Microsoft Teams, video, how can we share files, but security is normally the one that falls by the wayside. And it's normally because with remote working, everyone feels safe. You're at home, you've got your family, you're in comfort of your home office or another room. Cybersecurity is not at the top of your mind. You're probably worried about business, what's going on in the world. You're probably worried about how you can do your job, or how can you manage your team remotely. You need to get security up there, as a high priority. As mentioned before, we're seeing thousands of users dispersing everywhere. They're taking laptops everywhere. They're taking laptops out of cupboards. What was BYOD, where people were bringing their own devices into the office, we've now got the reverse of that, where they're already at home, but they're trying to use the home devices. They're trying to access corporate email on mobile phones. The ways to do that, but it needs to be managed. It needs to be managed at a corporate level just to make sure that security is maintained. System security. So people are, as mentioned before, digital transformation is rapidly happening. What would have taken some organizations years to get there, they've started doing it within a week. And this comes with its own challenges. So you've got companies that we used to having on-site infrastructure, the on-site IT team sat next to the kit, looking after it, monitoring it. You're then moving these services to the cloud. You put data in 365. You might be using Teams. You've got users using laptops. Where's those hard drives going? Where's the data going? And it's having that mindset of making sure you've got that security plan. You are planning for it. You're managing it, and you've got that hold of your data, if you like. And again, data file access. So who can access the data? Are you still policing your data as if you would if you were in the office? So you managing permissions. If you move to Office 365, you then need the same level of security and input as if it was an on-site server. So different levels of access. Managers have different access to different areas. Obviously, some of the big corporates probably should be already on top of this, but a lot of small businesses in the supply chain, we see obviously just go and set up their own 365 account, move all the data to it, and not really understand the fact that, well, all their staff that have access to 365 now can see all the finance documents, or can now see a project that they shouldn't be looking at. So again, you need to have that same mindset of cybersecurity best practice, and if you're unsure, obviously speak to your IT team or advisor. Fearware is really big right now, and that's all around, everything's going on in the world, the pandemic. Hackers are looking to take advantage with, everyone being vulnerable. So they're increasing ransomware attacks, phishing emails, spam, some of it with a COVID-19 slant. So if you haven't already, you'll start seeing fake emails around it. Probably you might have already had some text messages around it. Be very mindful of what's going on in the world, and people looking to exploit that panic. And the big one is you need to filter that down to your teams. So again, especially in bigger organizations, you've usually got the tech savvy teams or some of the engineers that are quite fine with that, but you need to get this to every department, and whether that's through cybersecurity awareness training, or doing weekly calls on Microsoft Teams, for example, letting them know, don't forget to follow your best practice. Weekly staff snippets. So we do it internally ourselves, but we do it for companies as well, where a bit of a fact sheet or an information sheet that managers can send to all the staff to say, obviously, don't forget to change your password, don't forget to be vigilant when you're receiving emails. Just little reminders. Nothing too big in one go, because as everyone knows, that email will probably get filed somewhere, never to be seen again. But yeah, just short, sharp, useful little information snippets are always good. If anyone's got Cyber Essentials, it's a baseline government security standard, and it covers areas where, really baseline information. So are you resetting passwords on routers? Do you have password policies? Do you have Windows updates? That is a great baseline for people to follow at home. So again, off the back of that, and a bit further on, we talk about a working from home checklist. You could take fundamentals from something like Cyber Essentials and create yourself a security remote working from home checklist. A lot of these users have gone home with no planning, no thought, just because it's a knee-jerk reaction of we need to get people back online. If these users had a checklist, so they could check, hardware-wise, I've got my laptop, I've got my monitors, but again, have a section on security. I've got two-factor authentication enabled, I've got my antivirus. My IT department have done this for me, and I know everything's fine. And then anything unticked, when this checklist comes back, you've got an action plan. You've got areas that you need to fix. And I think we've discussed with Monica that we'll try and put together a baseline checklist that we can share with everyone, that at least can get people started. That even on a small scale, it gets people thinking, and internally you can then build on that. And usually great for sort of internal IT departments to do that. Antivirus encryption, again, very standard stuff, and most people have this covered. But again, it's when you're at home, when you're in comfort, your own environment, it's the last thing you're thinking of. So big organizations should be looking at how can we manage our antivirus and encryption at scale and remotely. On a smaller scale, consultants working on their own, small teams, you need to bring that responsibility onto yourself. Maybe make someone in your organization responsible for this checklist, and making sure things are set to automatically update, they've got encryption, Windows are up to date. And the big one around that is the encryption, because you've got laptops everywhere, you've got hard drives everywhere. If that was to get lost or stolen, it's it can cause big issues, especially in some of the sectors that we're talking about, between sort of where we work and where Monica works. Password policies, again, quite standard stuff, but if you're a small organization, work for yourself, this is something you can do in Windows. Just jumping into your settings control panel, and it's a 2-minute job just to turn on. And again, big corporates should be looking at, how can we push out these password policies? How can we enforce them and make them a bit tighter, if you like? Let's change them to reset passwords every 2 weeks. Because with everyone working remotely, people are probably going to start using passwords that they're using on home environments, home websites, and settings like that. So it's just trying to keep that security high. Two-factor authentication. Most people will know what this is. Most people are probably fed up of it, because they're probably already using it on banks, on personal applications, and it's basically the need for 2 items when logging on. So it's usually a a password and a text message or a password and a code. Most technology vendors now have built this into their products. So Office 365, Teams, all the SaaS products have that feature there. But what most of them don't do is they don't enable it. So again, at business level, IT teams need to be enabling that, pushing out at scale and forcing that on people. And obviously, if you're a one-man band or a small company, you need to be going in and making sure you turn that on for your staff. And it's, once it's set up, people get used to it, and it's for everyone's own good. Backups and DR, again, linked with security, and usually falls down the line of priority when panic sets in. So everyone's panicked, everyone's gone home. Yes, people might start thinking about antivirus security, but we've just moved all our data to the cloud. We've had on-site servers, we've had on-site PCs. We've got good practice on either automatically backing up our data. So we've got software to do that, or our servers have probably got some element of replication or tapes or some element of disaster recovery built in. On a PC level, we're probably either doing personal backups to a USB drive or a hard drive, or to a cloud service. Everyone overnight, as we've discussed, have gone remote, have gone dispersed, and backups are now not in people's minds. But we're picking up data, we're putting in Office 365, we're doing stuff in Teams, we're putting stuff in all sorts of cloud offerings, and then not thinking about backing it up. So in the examples below, there's a Acronis cloud backup. Again, these are third parties that will come in, back up your 365, and 365 is quite a key one. So obviously you can imagine it's Microsoft, it's robust, it's solid, but there is fine print within Microsoft that states you are responsible for your own backups. So if data gets lost or corrupt in 365, there's only so far Microsoft can go. So we'd always advise, work with a third party. There's a lot of vendors out there. Obviously, Acronis is one we've got in there. But what that does is it'll take a copy of your 365, pull it out of Microsoft, and put it in another UK secure data center. And that just means that if anything happens to your data, anything happens to Microsoft, you've got control and you can recover that, and you're not waiting on Microsoft to recover that data. Again, Active Track product we mentioned before, it helps around the productivity, but again, it's got a lot of security features built in. So you can look at picking up user habits, what websites they're going to, just keeping that control of activity like you would if they're in the office. Do you want to jump to the next one, Monica? And this one I've just thrown in off the back of Monica's webinar last week. So I believe that was around productivity and wellbeing, but there are applications and a bit of tech to help with that. So a couple of these that I use myself. So Brain FM, it's actually AI generated music for focus, and it's really good. If you use it with headphones, especially if you've got a noisy 3-year-old in the background, if you've got to get a bit of work done, within 10 minutes of using it, it's really effective. Again, I think with everything that's going on, they've got an extended trial, and there's many applications out there for managing habits, routines, and fitness and stuff like that. Really, I'll jump on the next one. So in terms of technology vendor support, what we'll do is, I think once we type this up and we've got a list of vendors and advice we can send out, maybe with that checklist, we'll include this. But what a lot of technology vendors are doing at the minute with COVID-19 and all the panic and everything's going on, a lot of the vendors are actually offering support. So if they offered trials before, they're offering extended trials. Some are offering a free service now. Again, a lot of them are hoping that long-term people adopt to it, and it's definitely a long-term strategy. But while everyone needs this remote working tool, everyone might as well take advantage of it. So obviously Microsoft Teams have got an extended 6-month trial, and around Microsoft Teams, if you've already got Office 365, you've probably already got Microsoft Teams in the background. If you're not already using it and you're not aware of it, you've probably already got that available. WebEx, Zoom, again, all products that are offering free services. Acronis Backup I mentioned before for 365, extended trials, and Loom is a free service that screen capture, making training videos, great little tool for free. But we can share this, and it's not just these guys. If if you've got an IT department or an IT advisor, or you have a specific vendor, go and talk to them, because they're all looking to help with what's going on, and you'll be able to either explore new packages they've got, or take advantage of a new service that you might not have got before. And I think that's it, Micah. Cool.
Great, thanks, Mike. Can I just ask you a question? You mentioned about broadband routers and changing passwords. So should companies potentially be encouraging people to change their broadband routers at home fairly regularly now that they're working from home, and I guess maybe just using their normal home broadband for this?
Yeah, I mean, there's different slants on it, and obviously, if you look at it as a long-term game, if you're planning that people are going to be working at home for full time for 3 months, if not longer, then I'd probably encourage companies to look at should you be putting in a separate internet line for that activity? Should you be running 2 broadband lines in parallel to keep the network separate? But with that, under 3 months sort of mindset, and is remote working going to reduce after that? Probably. We'd always encourage, put a baseline in. As a company, set a standard, and whether you use, as I mentioned, Cyber Essentials as a baseline. But yeah, you can have things in there, once every couple of months, change that router password. The big one is obviously you have a separate password on your wireless SSID. That's probably one that you want to change more often, because that's the one that obviously someone could be sat outside your house with a scanner that could be compromised. But yeah, we'd always recommend a level of baseline guidance. Obviously, that's very hard to enforce, and all you can do is sort of advise, really, and try and remind people sort of best practice.
Brilliant, thank you. Obviously, we're now open up for questions if anyone's got anything they want to ask. I mean, I do have a few questions here already for Mike, and if anyone else has got any that they want to jump in and ask, please do so. So, Mike, I've seen a few different news stories about the safety and security of different apps.
Yeah.
That have become quite popular in recent weeks. So what should I be looking out for? What should we be looking out for security-wise if we're choosing a piece of software or an app to use whilst we're working from home?
A couple of fundamental ones probably first is obviously, depending on the industries you work, obviously where, the industries where we work, UK data is important to us. So one of the first checks is, who's got access to that data, where's it hosted? And if you can, try and make sure it is UK based. If it's a bit more broader than that, if it's a video conferencing tool, or is it a file sharing tool, or maybe something on your mobile phone, as a standard, you want 2-factor authentication. You'd want to make sure that it's got functionality to do that. If it hasn't, can you add that? And do they work with anyone that does that? So there's a few tech vendors out there, like one called Duo, and I think Cisco might have acquired them now, where if a piece of software hasn't got 2-factor authentication, you can basically bolt on Duo and put that extra layer of security in front of it. So they're probably 2 fundamental ones. And then try, depending what the use case is, really. If it's obviously a business application where you're going to put data, you're going to want to dive a bit more into who's got access to the data, support around it, SLAs, uptime. If it's more of a communication tool, SLAs are not that important, then the baseline security questions probably fine.
I was on mute. Thank you, Mike. That's really useful. So we've got a question in the Q&A panel just asking about the security of Zoom, as opposed, the question is Zoom video conference as secure as Teams? So I know in Teams, is it based on Skype for Business? Is that what's...
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft Teams is sort of superseding Skype. So in terms of the security at the video conferencing level, they're all, whether you look WebEx, Teams, Zoom, they're all very similar. You can obviously add extra add-ons to that. So obviously Microsoft Teams, you can look to add 2-factor authentication on. But most of them, when in transit, so when video has been transmitted, if you like, not to go too technical, but they use sort of encryption levels like TLS. So basically people can't intercept the chat, if you like. So in terms of the conversations between them all, they're all very similar. Where Microsoft goes a step further is in your control panel, especially if you're using the element where you're sharing files. Those files sit within Teams. You can then look at adding two-factor authentication, making sure it's UK only data. So it's probably, if you're just using it as a raw video conferencing, very similar. If you want to take that next step into sharing files, and actually using it for the full functionality of Microsoft Teams and obviously in Office 365, then Microsoft probably has the edge in terms of what you can turn on and the, making sure it's UK only.
Brilliant, thanks, Mike. Got another question. Is there any benefit in using a lesser known video conference software with less traffic congestion than Zoom or Microsoft Teams?
Am I reading that right in terms of lesser known video conferences?
Because I know obviously there's things like Google Hangouts.
Yeah, so I mean,
things
again,
like that.
with all video conferencing, so yeah, Google Hangout, Zoom, Teams, you can actually change the settings. So if you've got limited bandwidth, you can drop the quality of the video, which helps. So you can do that in all the main providers. So obviously, if you're working out on 4G or you needed to dial in, we'd always recommend that drop that video quality so it's seamless. But in terms of less well-known providers, it shouldn't really make a difference. The technology is very similar. It normally comes down to connectivity, and you're normally going to bottleneck at the weaker side. So obviously, if you're doing site to site, making sure connectivity both ends really strong. But with people working from home, you maybe put out internal surveys of. I mean, what we did at Yellow Bus was obviously put out a survey of, is everyone comfortable working from home? Does everyone have a desk to work from? And the big one, obviously, has everyone got a reliable, fast internet? Because obviously, people come back and say, well, I'm still got dial-up. That's going to be a big issue. So as a company, you need to then decide, are we going to upgrade that internet for them? Or can that user not work remotely? And, we need to look at other stuff. But yeah, in terms of long way of saying, they're all in terms of the video, it's very much the same. And most should have the settings where you can prioritize.
Right, okay, thanks, Mike. And then thinking about sort of broadband or your home Wi-Fi, I know that for me, my home Wi-Fi is under increased pressure because there's more of us in all day. So I'm obviously competing to use video conferencing with clients, etc., etc. Are there any things people can do potentially to alleviate the situation? I mean, I know you talked about dropping the video quality, but there was a news report about switching off certain household items that I saw saying that interfere with these things. Is there anything practical people might be able to do?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like what you mentioned there with the interfering with like devices like microwaves, that's all around not knowing the full technology around it, but I believe microwaves sort of emit at the same frequency as Wi-Fi. So there are rumours that there is some link. I've never had my internet drop out yet when the microwave's been on, but it's if you're having issues, then yeah, definitely maybe investigate that. But the obvious ones are obviously if you're using it for business, if you're using it for corporate, are there devices in the office that you can now temporarily take off? Everything now is IoT, Internet of Things. You've got Alexas joined to stuff, you've got Xboxes, TVs, all that in the background is constantly using your internet. So if you can, obviously it's a bit of a challenge when you've got kids around and you probably need an element of that to entertain them. But if do a bit of analysis of your network, what's running during the day that doesn't need to run. As I mentioned before, if you're looking at remote working as a long-term arrangement, maybe you need to, for the price of a home internet line, you can get relatively good prices now for a lot of speed. Maybe look at a second line, separate network, and run your laptop through that, and then the family and other devices can do what they want. They can fully utilize the home internet, and you've got that second internet pipe, for you to keep the quality for your video conferencing and your sort of business activities.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Right, I've got another question. So it's clearly the Microsoft products integrate under 365. Do other apps integrate, for example, productivity tools with video conferencing and file share?
Yes, I mean, I mean, Monica, you might be better on the Zoom one. You're a Zoom user, but I believe you can do screen sharing and you can do file transfer and stuff with Zoom, can't you?
I know you can do that in Zoom, yes, and I know in Zoom there is things like there is like a whiteboard function that you can use, which I haven't used yet. And then I know there's other whiteboard applications that I believe you can integrate into, I mean, Teams. I've not used Teams much at all, but I believe there's something called, I think it's Moro or something, or like I was reading about it, that can also move into there.
Well, I mean, there are. I mean, obviously, someone mentions like the productivity tools with the VC. There are ways. I think some of the applications I mentioned before, like I think Monday.com, like the online project management tool, you can in the background integrate that with some of your other tools, so you can set your shortcuts that, you know, if you click to ring one of your members of staff, it'll ring whatever you're using for VC. So if you're using Zoom, it'll launch that. If you're using Teams, and again with file sharing, so there is integration at that level. If you wanted to go a step further, there are tools to basically bring automation. So obviously mentioned on the file sharing part, there are tools that you can actually go and look at to add that automation. So there's a piece of software called Integromat, which can plug basically any applications together. So if you're using basecamp.com to manage your projects, but you actually want your data to sit in Microsoft Office 365, you can use this third-party application to say, well, when I save data in it here, put a copy of it in the Office 365, and then it's in your corporate estate, it's backed up, it brings it all together. So there's always a way around it, but it's probably case by case. But if anyone's got any specific examples that they want to fire over and say, I want to get this piece of software working with this one, then we can definitely sort of verify whether it's possible.
Great, thank you for that. Right, does anyone have any more questions? Anything else they'd like to ask? I think that's most of the questions answered. I'm just looking at my little list of questions as well, which I think you covered most of it, because I know when I had a question about sort of what advice would you give to first-time users of Microsoft Teams, but I know you covered the thing about enabling the two-factor authentication and I guess exploring all of the capability.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are using 365, and a lot of people don't know they've actually got Teams, or on the flip side, they've got Teams and all they're using it for is either a video or a phone system, but it's got that much more functionality. There's so much more power in 365 that a quick Google will show you what's there, but speaking to your IT team, your advisors, there's so much tools there that a lot of people are just not using. And again, a lot of little hacks, if you like, in Microsoft Teams that people are not using. So again, I think we can share this later. But simple things like blurring your background, which is depending on where you're working. And I think the advert for Microsoft Teams is the guy's in a cafe and he blurs his background so you can't see everyone moving. That's obviously just a couple of clicks when you're on the call. Really nice little feature. Most people don't know it's there. In fact, most of our guys didn't even know it was there until we've all been forced working from home. So we'll put some little hacks together that we can share with people.
Brilliant, thank you for that. Oh, another question. Are there any aspects of data leakiness that we might need to be aware of in apps like Zoom?
Data leakiness. I presume you mean by that question losing data or vulnerabilities, I think. So in terms of video and file transfers in transit, again, that's usually encrypted. So I know Zoom's encrypted, Microsoft Teams is encrypted. Obviously, there's a constant battle between what they're doing and hackers looking at exploiting it, and they're constantly evolving it. So video conferencing is classed as secure at the minute, but with what they're doing, obviously tomorrow someone could release something that takes advantage of data in transit, and it's always under threat. And again, the biggest risk you've got is not so much data getting leaked in transit, it's your portal or your admin sites getting attacked. That's where the bigger risks are. So obviously in Zoom, you're probably going to use that more for video conferencing, probably not really sharing files that too much, a bit like you would Microsoft SharePoint, but it comes into its own with Microsoft Teams, where that portal could be the entry into your Microsoft SharePoint, into your 365 applications, into your data, where we spoke about two-factor authentication, really important. And then obviously making sure you've got a disaster recovery plan around that. If it all got wiped, if you had a user that went in there that did either accidentally or purposely wipe everything out, you have a system in the background backing up your 365, putting it somewhere else. So literally, either yourself or your IT advisor or your IT team, very quickly could just recover that data and that IT estate to get you back up and running.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Right, I don't think there's any more questions. So what I propose we do, oh, wait a minute. Okay, oh, another question. So is there any consideration for overseas ownership data storage to consider?
I'd have to check on that one with Zoom, but I do know with Microsoft you can specify where you want your data and all the files around your conversations to be stored, and you can specify with Microsoft UK. What you can't specify is exactly which data center. So Microsoft being Microsoft, they will basically say it's across UK data centers. So that's something that, especially for for your nuclear engineering, that's something that we're getting asked a lot about at the minute. And at the minute, a lot of nuclear companies that were resisting moving to 365 Teams, this is forcing the hand, if you like. They need these tools now to keep doing the job they're doing. And the security is there as long as people are following best practice. As mentioned before, they're doing the same security practices as they would in the office. If you look at a lot of people's comms rooms compared to an actual data center, the data center security is far greater. A lot of people don't like the idea of cloud because it's, where's my data? I can't touch it. I can't see the server. But if you look at the security around that data center and what they're doing to protect your data, it's usually a lot more secure than most companies' own comms room in their building. The biggest threat really to everything is end users. It's staff. It's if the easiest way to hack a system is probably to ring a member of staff and try and get a password off them, or look to hack their email account that then will give them entry into the system. So again, two-factor authentication, making sure you're backing up your data, making sure you've got a DR plan to get that system back up and running if you do fall down that route.
Brilliant, thanks, Mike. So essentially around the sort of ownership of data, overseas ownership of data storage, it's very much about, if you're using something like Microsoft, you can obviously specify where you want that data to be.
Yeah, I suppose there is a bigger conversation around obviously where the data is stored, and obviously you can specify UK, and that's fine for most people. You then run into the conversation that some people have an issue because Microsoft are an American corporation. If they wanted to, they could basically say, well, we want to do this with the data because it's in the UK. So that probably will stop some really sensitive data going into the cloud and going to Microsoft. But for big percentage of the supply chain, especially within nuclear, the fact that you can sort of specify UK data centers, who it's locked down to, you can then go a step further and work, make sure the IT engineers you're working with, for your own personal IT estate have got SC clearance. That usually ticks most boxes. And then, if you're then looking at the step above where it's really sensitive data and you're not happy with that, the fact that Microsoft is American and they could demand to do what they want really with that data center, you then want to look at a private cloud, and that's you basically spinning your own infrastructure or working with an IT provider that will build your platform in a UK data center. You own the hardware, you own the cloud services, and no one can access that.
So that is an option as well, to have your own specified cloud system. So that way exactly, like you said, where it's stored, who's got access to it, and it kind of then takes away that issue of there being any additional ownership. It's owned by your organisation and managed by your preferred IT provider.
Yeah, and then you can have a bit more control over. So you might want to run Microsoft SharePoint or Microsoft Exchange email, but your organization, for whatever reason, doesn't want to put it in the Office 365 public cloud. You can go to a provider and have a private cloud built. You can specify that you only want SC cleared engineers to access it. You get a lot more greater control over that IT estate, if you like, and it's you can then look at ISO 27001, the Cyber Essentials. It's your private cloud. You have full control, if you like.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I feel like I've learned, I mean, IT has always been something, because I feel like it's been so fast moving in recent years. I was always thinking, am I doing the right password protections and all these sorts of things, and making sure that any data I've got from my clients is safe, and obviously anything of my data is safe. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem.
You've got just 2 minutes left, so just to let you know, it will be possible to view a recording of this, so you will all get sent a link to this as well. We will put together a little summary which will have some of the different links to the items that Mike mentioned as well. You can email if you've got any further questions. And then finally, I just want to say thank you, Mike, for sharing that information. That was really, really useful, and I was taking a few notes and about a few little things that I'm definitely going to take a look at. And yeah, so thank you so much for giving up your time and doing that today. And then finally, thank you to everyone who's joined us on the webinar today, and for asking lots of different questions and for participating. So I'm going to draw it all to a close. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.